Thank you so much, guys, for coming over. This is day three of our summit for startups. Here we are talking about CAs, IP lawyers, and investors. To a startup, need all of these three. And guys, the reason for bringing all of you together here is the current situation in the country and the world is a bit disturbing and alarming as well, and we want all of the people to stay safe, stay indoors. And while everybody is indoor and we are virtual, we thought of bringing all of you together on a panel where we can talk about different aspects of entrepreneurship journey. How can we take guidance from all of your journeys and help the people who are aspiring to be an entrepreneur or they are struggling in their journey, and how can they take help and guidance from your life experiences and make their own life better. So that's the basic agenda for the day. And thank you so much, all of you, Himanshu, Kushru, Rohan, and Vedant, for gracing the panel and accepting our invitation in these tough times. I'm sure all of you have taken out important time of yours. So I'll quickly introduce all of you now because I cannot remember each and every achievement of yours. I have a printout here, and once I'm done with this introduction, I'm gonna keep this printout aside, and all the discussion and everything apart from introduction is gonna be live. There will be no script, so to say here. All right. So let me just start with Himanshu. Himanshu Mandavia is a practicing chartered accountant and has been in practice for the last 25 years. His practice of interest is tax advisory and structuring of transactions for Indian as well as multinational clients. So he's the guy who has been bringing a lot of funds to the Indian country, to the startup ecosystem, uh, covering from different industry sectors. And he's currently focusing on venture capital clients and been advising a lot of domestic as well as foreign companies on structuring their funds and the tax and regulatory perspective. Himanshu has also been invited to a lot of international as well as national seminars, and he has been an active contributor in the professional journals which belongs to the CA community. So Himanshu, thank you so much for coming on board. We are glad to have you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Next, we have is another seasoned, experienced person. It's Khushru Doctor, who's a founder of Tasha Tech Info Solutions Private Limited. Khushru has more than 30 years of experience in the field of information technology. Now, when I say more than 30 years of experience, that means he has been the guy who has seen the start of IT industry. So right from this inception of the IT industry in the country,
Yeah, right from floppy drives to everything, I've seen it all.
yes, yes. I mean, I don't know whether the people who are watching us had they even used floppy drives or not. All we have seen is at least a USB drive or the memory card to start with. But it's good to know that we have somebody coming from that time as well. All right, great. And guys, right now, Kushru uh, is also a certified Scrum Master. He also teaches students about Scrum Master. He's a Six Sigma Green Belt professional, and he's also done a lot of courses on project management professionals. And because of his inquisitive nature and constant learning passion, he has recently completed diploma in innovation and design thinking. So here we have an industry veteran coming who has seen everything in the software industry, right from floppies to the solid state drives, which we call right now. And the guy is still learning continuously and just completed a diploma in innovation and design thinking. That's so great. One of the key thing which again I would like to point out about Kushru is that he has been selected as top 50 tech leader in technology sector in 2019. Thank you so much, Kushru, for being here.
Thank you for
We are
having me. Thank you
glad
for
that you
having me.
accepted our invitation.
It's great to be able to share my knowledge with everyone. So thank you very much for giving me this platform.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Next we have is Vedant Gupta. Now, Vedant is a co-founder of Spring House Coworking. He is a workaholic and a true all-rounder. The reason why I say that he's an all-rounder is because he has vast experience in management, finance, accounting, compliance, and operations. I mean, with his energy and tactics, I'm sure that a lot of startups who come to his co-working spaces would always gain some other another tip to grow their business up. I mean, this guy has been all over. I mean, he has expertise in management, finance, compliance, regulatory things, operations, and with his energy and desire to grow quickly, but in a sustainable fashion, all of his startups who are working in the co-working space, I'm sure they would be gaining a lot from you, Vedant. So thank you so much, Vedant, uh, for coming over. And we want
Thank
you to
you. Thank you for having me.
share your energy, share your secret sauce with everybody as well, so that all of us who are not right now present in the co-working space or the virtual working space of yours can still learn from you. Thanks again. Now, with this various mix of people which we have here, we have another fine gentleman, Rohan Raj Barua. This guy is the youngest co-founder on the panel. Uh, he graduated in 2016, and immediately after graduation, Rohan started uh, Expand My Business, which is India's first managed marketplace for B2B services. He has also raised seed round of fundings from prominent investors, and with these innovative ideas, he is continuously excelling in growing the company and solving a lot of problems on a day-to-day basis. And his mission is to serve to 20 million SMEs of the country in going digital. Rohan, thank you so much for taking this initiative. I believe you are the true uh, you are actually helping our country's Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, to empower the citizen of the country with digital initiatives. And you are the one who's actually making things live on the ground. So thank you so much for taking up this initiative of digitization across the globe, across the country. And one more thing which I would like to point out here is, which I liked a lot about you, is in his free time, okay? In his free time, people of his age would generally spend time on Netflix or doing clubbing or anything. But Rohan goes out beyond that, and he advises other founders who are starting new companies. He helps them to launch the companies and help them with their problems as well. He's passionate about sports. I mean, we can see that you have an Arsenal flag there, and he's all into adventures and different types of cuisines. Excellent, Rohan. Glad to have
Thank
you
you
on
so
the
much for
panel.
having me. Thank you so much for having me. Hope I can give some valuable insights to everyone present. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, excellent. So now, as I said, I'm done with the sheet. Now I have all the questions for you, which gonna be live with respect to what the answers you guys give, and we're gonna be going through each other's journey very quickly. All right. So let me start with the guy who has seen the floppy disk and worked on that. So, Mr. Kushru, you have been in the industry for quite so long. You have been a delivery head and of the software company called a Sybase for around 10 years. And then you started your own practice. You started your own firm, Tasha Tech Info Solution. What was your calling? And why did you start on your own?
You might you might say I was very dissatisfied with life. Okay. See, Tasha
Okay.
Tech was not my first company. I had launched two companies previously before joining Sybase Info Solution, Sybase Software Private Limited.
Okay.
And Tasha Tech was born out of passion. I had got tremendous respect and love from everyone around when I was working in Sybase software. But at the end of the day, there was that niggling feeling that I was always working for someone. And there was always someone else calling the shot. Even
Mhm.
with my experience, I had to go back and ask for approvals for all of that, which in some way was hurting me, maybe hurting my ego, and all of that. So
Okay.
at that point of time, now with the complete 360-degree experience that I had received of working in a large company, as well as my previous journey, that gave me a lot of confidence that I can launch a startup successfully, because
Okay.
at that point of time I had everything necessary to launch a startup. And I think that was the story that was covered by your story also. Your story carried my story there, saying that at 50 somebody thinks of launching his own company. Yeah, I had received a lot of pushback from my loved ones, my typically my wife, my friends, and everyone kept on telling me that boss 50 saal pe, think something different, think of retiring, think of doing all of that. Why do you want to disturb your life and uh, like do something like this? Because it everyone understands launching your own company is uh, expects a lot out of you. Like you are a CEO, but you are in fact a peon, a clerk, a waterman, everything put together. You are everything. You are not just the CEO. So it's not a exalted position when you are in a startup. You are doing everything, 360 degrees. So at that point of time, but I had this passion for uh, uh, doing something on my own, wanting to do quality stuff, do things where people are not talking roundabout, like talking straight. There is a lot of in IT industry. If you understand IT industry, there are a lot of things that are happening which are wrong. Like we try to complicate things, we try to make a huge thing out of small things. Like there are a lot of things that I felt were wrong. We should not be doing it. That is where I came out and started a company. We are also starting a second company now, and which is
Wow.
the first company, Tasha Tech, was for IT services. We are now launching a company for products, for where we are going to work on only products for fintech space or some space. So yes, it is a very interesting thing. If you like to put on all the fights and put on all the hats together, it's a very interesting journey. And you tend to love every moment, every second of it.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, I can agree 100% on that. Because one of the key thing which I also share with you is the passion. I always had this passion to start my own. As you also said that when you are working under somebody else, you need to wait for a lot of approvals. There is a lot of bureaucracy involved, and you cannot be your own boss, even though you are doing all the work. But there's somebody else who's taking all the credits when the work goes good. And of course, no questions asked about who's going to take all the backlash when things go south. So yes, that has been the culture so far, and it's great that you could start your own. And the primary contributing factor was the passion to start your own. That's great, and I'm sure all the entrepreneurs and all the startup founders do have that passion, which is why they could jump on the entrepreneurship journey, which is filled with so many uncertainties. And
Sure.
taking that plunge at 50 years
Absolutely.
of age
Absolutely.
is
See,
again
the only
commendable.
thing, only constant in startup journey is the movement that happens, is the uncertainty of life.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thank you so much, Kushu, for that. Wow. So with this, I move to Himanshu. So Himanshu, can you give me a reason for your motivation to serve the startup community?
Sure, Brian. So again, just like my career itself, that how did I get to become a chartered accountant? Similarly, for how I got into working with startups as well, it is not so much by design, but just let's say by default, so to say. Okay. So becoming a chartered accountant was like saying you don't want to be in science after you got into college. Arts में कुछ है नहीं तो फिर commerce करना है. So then you said, okay, ठीक है, let's do commerce, and then with commerce, then you were chartered accountant, right? So by default, you ended up. But with the grace of God, luckily, luck kind of supported and got into good organizations where I could start learning a lot about transactions, getting into good deals. From a very beginning of my career, was involved in some market deals of joint ventures of foreigners coming in and doing some big transactions in India, and doing some good quality tax work. And then over a period of time, it has always been relating to kind of foreign investments into India and how they can be structured and that kind of stuff. So over a period of time, it kind of became a specialization over a period of time. And then this whole startup thing, while today there is a lot of focus on saying that supporting startups and investing in startups and what are the transaction issues, etc., etc. But to some extent, as chartered accountants and tax advisors, we have all, and even lawyers, right? You've all been part of the journey for entities which start, right? From the time
Right.
you help support an entity to be set up, a business to be set up. And there are all levels of businesses. You can say that, okay, if it's a large corporate group setting up a subsidiary, then that's a different thing. But we have worked always with so many individuals who are starting their own businesses, or family groups who are starting their businesses, and we help set up the legal entities, set up their functions, give tax advice. So it was in a sense somewhere relating to helping somebody start something. And now over the last few years, with the focus coming in the ecosystem on startups, I think just the number of opportunities that have been coming up for all of us, right, in this ecosystem, that there are a lot many questions coming up for how to get money into the startups. What are the tax issues for those startups? Are there some advantages that startups can take? Are there some registrations which startups can obtain, which will give them benefit, investors some benefit? So these kind of questions, as they start kind of getting collated and becoming repetitive, I think it's natural that those, from our practice perspective, we started talking to them more and more. And also just the sheer number of startups today in the ecosystem, right? And in the last 2 3 years, we have been part of some of the names that you mentioned at the start of the call, which are like very, very small entities when we started talking to them. And in within 2 to 3 years, they have just grown multifold. So the opportunities that they have achieved or captured in the last few years has also helped us to be part of that learning and support them in their journey. So it's just evolved over a period of time. But yeah, it has been a fun journey for us as well. A lot of learning for us also, and just the enthusiasm of people involved in the startup ecosystem, right? I mean, as Kushen was mentioning, I am also part of that age when we were with floppy disks, etc. So right now, working with people with such a young population and getting those ideas, that also kind of encourages us and motivates us also to be part of that. So that's where we are working with startups.
Wow, excellent, excellent. So if I have to summarize what you said quickly is working with startups make you motivated, it inspires you, it brings all the passion out of you, and choosing CA was sort of uh, default stream which was left to you because the rest of the streams were not applicable or not that much of interested for you. And gradually, as you move forward in the career, you started to specialize in tax and regulatory work, which is now helping all the community in India to get much of the funds from foreign and also seek advice from your all side. Thank you so much,
Right.
Manshu, for that, for sharing your journey. All right, next I have a very simple question to Rohan. So Rohan, at one side here we have Himanshu and Kush who have been into the industry for last 20 to 25 years. They have seen the floppy disk and whatnot in their lives. And then Kushru at 50 decided to start his own. And at the other side of the spectrum, we have you, who is a fresh graduate, a recent graduate, and started his own company, expand my business. What was your calling, and what motivated you enough to start the venture first without even working for somebody else?
Okay, so again, it's there's a lot of credit to, I believe in evolution, right? It's a very big part of where we are today and where we have been in the past as well, right? So had people such as Himanshu and Khushu not seen the floppy disk, today we wouldn't be moving on to pen drives, we wouldn't be moving on to cloud, right? It's because only when you realize the
Right.
problem with the previous solution do you actually sort of come and think about new solutions, right? And in fact, even if you look at the startup boom that has happened in the last, in the last 8 years or so, maybe in the last decade, they are all solutions that are coming out of problems that were already solved before, but it's a better way of solving these problems in terms of helping the people that we're doing, right? So my calling to it, I can give you a very generic answer and tell you that, since a child I wanted to be an entrepreneur. It's actually none of that. I've it's a self-faced problem, right? After college, when I was sitting for placements, and just when I had the general, just like every other engineering college, when everyone's sitting in the last year for placements and all, I felt like there was a little bit of a gap within me. I wasn't fully satisfied with the way that, how the entire sort of approach is happening. Like, I'm applying for jobs, I'm getting an interview, and then, basis on a piece of paper, I'm getting selected for what could essentially be deciding my next, 10, 15, 20 years. And that is actually when, I decided to take that plunge. So I knew my partner as well from college, and, it's a self-faced problem when we both realize that this is a problem that actually exists in so many different SMEs, and so many different people are actually facing this exact same situation. And the fact that there was no solution to this, that is what actually bothered us the most. The problem in itself was, it's huge. If I come and tell you today that if you're looking for someone to outsource your work, where do you go? There's no specific answer that everyone has. And the fact that there's no solution, considering how far we moved ahead in every other industry, how is there no solution that exists? And that is how it started, right? How our journey had started. So, in a nutshell, I would say that the fact that it was a self-faced problem, that was the biggest motivator. And second, also, always keeping, people such as Himanshu, Kushu, and veteran experience people in mind. It's them, it's their thoughts and ideas where the actual problem starts initially getting solved. Just because we are, born at in a later stage, and, we have more sort of reach to technology, is what allows us to use that technology as leverage to further better solutions. And, this is going to happen, let's say 20, 30 years down the line as well. When I'm 40, 50, you're going to be having the same kind of webinar with someone who's just graduated a college and is 24, and they're going to be talking about the same thing. So I completely believe in evolution. And while we are solving new problems, we wouldn't be anywhere without, experienced folks such as the people on this panel. That is my take on it.
Excellent words, Rohan. You focused a lot on evolution and identifying the problem. So that is absolutely correct. I mean, I've read. I mean, one of the very strongest statements said by Simon Sinek recently was that people know what they do and how they do, but they do not know why they do it. So the why is basically the problem, what problem you're solving and why you're solving it. And the passion which you have uh, is exactly telling me here that identifying a particular problem and the passion and willpower to solve that particular problem is keeping you aside from rest of the folks who graduated in the same batch of your college. And I'm sure most of them, whenever they feel that okay, they want to start their own, will reach out to you for getting all of their B plans and everything ready from your side. Thank you so much, Rohan, for touching on that. So now, as we're just talking about why and what is your belief, what is your why, what's your calling, I want to move to Vedant, who has been who's been a co-founder of Spring House Co-working Space, which is again an evolutionary concept in India. It's an innovative concept. uh, I think we have seen a lot of tech companies based out of US started from their garages and everything, and here we are when we're talking about startups. There are bunch of other co-working spaces out in the country who are opening their doors and providing the spaces to the startups to work, to flourish, to blossom. So Vedant, what are the particular typical challenges you face while dealing with your startups when they come to your co-working space, thinking that once they enter it, it'll all be fairy tale and they'll all fly high?
Okay, so it's interesting that Rohan just touched upon or used the word evolution, because I want to mention that I don't know about the rest of the world, but in India especially, uh, co-working spaces have evolved, and in fact our clients have evolved. So we're actually catering to a lot of larger businesses with a much larger team size, 100, 150, 200, even up to 700 people. We're catering those teams, pretty much set businesses, conventional businesses also. Startups are actually just 20-25% of our entire mix. So our clientele has also evolved like that. But yeah, I mean, coming to your point, I'm not going to differentiate between startups or anyone else, but it's really interesting to see the entire melting pot that kind of just goes by on a daily basis. And everyone interacting with each other, coming up with business opportunities, coming up with new ideas, a lot of collaboration going on a daily basis. Uh, as far as startups are concerned, I think yes, 2 3 years back there used to be a lot of guys who would come in, have humongous dreams, and would just fight it out. Some of them would go big, some of them would go down. I mean, that's just a normal process. But as of now, yeah, we've got a lot of new companies coming in who are actually quite experienced in their own ways, and they come up with brilliant ideas, and they have a very structured way of going about things. So that is in fact why I was so interested in the entire topic of this conversation, because I have worked in a CA firm for 9 years. I'm sure Himanshu sir is going to relate to that. I used to do internal audits and investigations. So from there and cut to Springhouse co-working directly. So that's how the entire thing kind of matches up. And yeah, so I'd say that it's interesting to work with startups. It's got its own challenges, it's got its own risks, but a lot of good is what I see coming out of it.
Excellent, great. A great piece of advice, Vedant. Again, thank you so much for that. Now, I want to move to Khushru to ask about the evolution is the word now I have picked, and the evolution of software industry has been tremendously amazing. I mean, you have seen it everything. Now here we are at a stage where every second company or a startup company or the founder is coming out and pitching saying that I am doing blah 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 using AI/ML. I am doing blah 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 using AI/ML, deep learning, neural network. What is your take on that? You got to unmute yourself, Kushal.
Yeah, first of all, it is a misconception that AI and ML are contemporary technologies. They are not contemporary technologies. AI and ML, the theory that is being taught today, was taught to me when I was doing my master's. Okay, so let
Wow.
us get that out, that AI and ML is not something new. Now, you have to understand that AI and ML need a lot of processing power, lot of
True.
accumulated data to generate intelligence out of data. Up till now, we were talking of converting data into information. Now we are talking of converting data into intelligence. And that is far more memory intensive task. So you cannot generate intelligence out of small data items. You need data,
True.
collected data of 4 years, 5 years to generate proper intelligence, which was not there. Now, after a certain period of time, a lot of companies have accumulated that data to produce reasonably good intelligence, right? So
Right.
this is what is happening right now, that AIML is not what is current. The same algorithms, same techniques, same things were taught to me when I was in ML. I remember doing an elective on artificial intelligence, and same book still exists. It is still being taught. Same things. Okay,
No wonder.
but right
Yes.
now we can implement it because we have cheap processing power and cheap storage capacity. Like today, storing a 1 TB data is like what? How many rupees? 10,000 rupees? 15,000 rupees? A hard disk.
Yep.
And 1 TB data, when we were being taught, 1 TB data drive did not exist, right?
Correct.
I remember buying a 4 MB memory stick for my first machine at 17,000 rupees. 4 MB. Right
Wow.
now, if I tell a millennial or a Gen Z guy that you have to work on a computer with 4 MB, he will not even smile at me. He will say, "This man has gone crazy," right? We
Right.
talk about a processing power in GBs on our mobile phones, on all those things. So this is where the advantage is coming. Now we are sitting on troves of data, troves of data, which can be collated, which can be correlated, and different complex algorithms can be made to work on that data, and that data can be processed to generate intelligence. Think about Google. How much of data Google is generating per day? Google is generating petabytes of data per day. Now, for petabytes to store petabytes of data, you need huge areas to store data, and that is what has kick-started this journey. But what happens in this field is that the word is being abused quite appreciably. We are many a times we are doing analytics, only analytics, and we are talking about artificial intelligence.
Right.
We are doing static query, static data retrieval, and we are talking about intelligence. There is a huge difference between all of these words. But what is typically happens in IT industry is you get a word, you catch hold of it, and then you fly with that word. Okay, so that is the problem here. Not all solutions that are coming out in the name of AI and ML are intelligence based. Many of them are simple analytics, where analytic solutions, informative solutions are being applied. Intelligence is not about getting information. Analytics is getting to make decisions based on the data. Okay, so that is where the problem today lies. Everyone has started. It usually happens. Everything has in IT industry. Everything has that years. Like at one point of time, we used to keep on hearing this word cloud. Everything was associated with cloud. For everything, we would say, "Oh, this is cloud based. This is cloud. This is cloud,"
Correct.
without understanding what cloud was. Okay, so yes, this is. But there are some great solutions also coming out, which are really serving or solving real life cases in a excellent manner. Like in healthcare, I have seen some excellent solutions where intelligence is being used for the benefit of the community. Lot of good solutions are also there, but as many good solutions are there, there are a lot of shitty solutions also, which really do not deserve to be called intelligence or machine learning based solutions.
True, true, true. Uh, we can see the frustration when people say that, okay, we are now using a path breaking AI ML technology in front of you, and the kind of lecture they would actually get from you because the same subject you have been taught way back in your masters. That's good to know. And yes, I mean, you've also touched upon very good point that a lot of path breaking technologies or the solutions, innovative solutions are coming out in healthcare and agriculture industry, and even in manufacturing. I mean, we are seeing so many innovative products, patented products are being coming out because what people do is once they conceptualize those algorithms and they know that this is how they're going to be solving the problem, they file a patent application to protect that across the globe and then license it out to other people so that the whole mankind can take benefit out of it. So yes, in software space, a lot of innovation is happening. A lot of patents are getting filed on each day for the underlying algorithm of the software, which gives you the intelligent information out of it with or without using AI ML. So thanks, Kushu, again for sharing your piece on that. Uh, Moving to Himanshu, here we are talking about evolution and innovation, how these companies are thriving great on their technology supremacy. As a CA, what are the challenge you face while valuing a particular startup who's backed with a patent or they have a path breaking technology?
Yeah, so this whole the concept of valuing a startup has been something which everybody agrees that it is something which nobody can define how it is being done, right? uh, and everybody kind of reconciles with the fact that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder is the statement which makes sense. So whatever is a new investor willing to pay from whatever his vision about that startup's activities or the likely success of that startup, and that is what he's willing to pay. So the old metrics of valuation, which we applied normally for all other businesses, of saying that can we define some kind of an asset-based value or some kind of a future cash flow-based valuation, is all kind of gone out of the window right now. While of course for regulatory reasons, you still need to have certain valuation methodologies which are prescribed by law. For example, if you are getting foreign investment, then you need to have a valuation report as per the guidelines provided under FEMA. Or if you are taking any money, or there is a secondary sale of any shares that is happening, then the tax rules require that the valuation is done as per certain methodologies. But generally, as a valuer for startups, I think most people are valuing it today based on the future potential of that startup. And that is, as we said, a very kind of loosely defined thing, or something which is in the abstract, depending on the thoughts of the investors. And sometimes based on the market as well, to say that there are comparables in the market and what are they getting valuations at, what are the multiples that they are talking about, and they are all like huge multiples, right? They are not our typical like 20 multiple of the profit, because there are no profits first of all to start with. So it is all based on a revenue multiple or a customer number and those kind of metrics that are being used. But at the end of the day, the goal is to come to some sense of trying to justify why we are valuing a company the way it is being valued. And then depending on the stage of the startup, right? Today, there are startups which have raised capital from multiple investors in multiple rounds. And the capital is itself a complicated cap table if you look at it. So different investors come in at with different rights at different points of time. There is typically something called as a distribution waterfall or a liquidation preference that gets negotiated by every new round of investor. So while a company may be valued in a particular way, but some of the shares may be valued slightly differently as compared to the overall company valuation. So while the total value may be the same, but the share value for one investor may be different than the share value for another. And there are different methodologies that are available to try and justify that valuation. So for startups, while at a very, very fundamental level, it can be a very simple valuation. And as per the foreign exchange rules, if you are setting up a new company, you don't even need a valuation. You just say that, okay, this is a new company and this is the value per share, which is just the base value. But from a commercial perspective, there are multiple ways of valuation, and it is all dependent on the stage of the company and the future value that the investor perceives.
The full future value the investor perceives. All right. And what about the role of IP assets, for example, patents or trademarks? Uh, do they also attract some investment, or do they help investor to put some more dollar, or put some more zeros to the check?
Certainly. I mean, IP is, whether it is a balance sheet IP that some startups or some companies have accounted for it and put a certain value to it, and keep on adding to it based on the efforts, like a software company or a product company that is creating something, or even a know-how IP, right? Today, with so many SaaS companies, that you are creating a process, you are creating a know-how, which may or may not be on the balance sheet, but just the intellectual know-how that the company possesses is what is valued, and that is actually the value that the investor is paying for, right? Today, of course, the people, the persons running the company, their own value is one thing. But also this know-how that is generated over a period of time, the learning experience, whether you capture it on the balance sheet or separately, is something that is always a value intangibly that is taken into account by the investors. Plus, whenever there is any transaction, so today what happens is that in many cases you might have seen that there are a startup which may be set up in India. They may be thinking of moving to an overseas jurisdiction and setting up a shop there, because to attract other foreign investors, to expand overseas. And one question that always typically comes up is that if I do need to migrate my IP, that whatever is the value that I think it is worth today, if I have to migrate it to an overseas jurisdiction, then how do I transfer it and what are the issues around that? And then we do need to get into specific IP valuation, if that is already on the balance sheet, and if there has been a discussion on valuing that IP in some shape or form. If you're transferring that, then certainly India will expect that somebody will pay for that value, and then you need to get a proper registered value that IP. But otherwise, as part of most transactions, this is kind of baked into the overall valuation, whether you call it goodwill, whether you call it know-how, whether you call it as technology, whatever way you call it. But somewhere or the other, I think this is the key ingredient, especially for startups, which is deriving value for everyone.
Right. Excellent. I mean, We do not still have some set methodology to derive a proper valuation for it. And you rightly pointed out that the valuation lies in the future growth in terms of what the investor feels for that particular company while he's putting his money out. So that's great piece of advice and lot many technical informations, Himanshu, you gave out. I'm sure people who are watching us or would be watching us post this session would love to take notes from your thoughts. Thank you so much, Himanshu, for sharing that. Vedant, so you have been running this co-working space, and there are so many startups around you. You would be seeing some startups failing miserably, some of the startups flying high. What piece of advice as a co-founder of the co-working space do you give to the startups who are failing miserably? You are on mute, Vedant.
Sorry. I'll start from where Himanshu sir left off. Is that it's true. A lot of the value that is associated with any company which is being funded is intangible, and there is no black and white method of measuring it, especially with the learning curve kicking in. And what we've realized in speaking with a lot of our members is that there are a lot of people who are running behind valuation in general without actually focusing on the core business. And what happens in that scenario is that as a startup in their heads, the value of something is bloated multiple times as compared to the value that is associated to that know-how by any external. Uh, Another part is that a lot of times, a lot of this intangible know-how, these startups are not being able to communicate that to a potential investor. They're not being able to send the message across, or send the right message across in the right way. A lot of times they whatsoever attach a value to that kind of know-how by themselves. So it kind of just a very large thing just boils down to a simple sales pitch of sorts, and that just doesn't work out, which is sad to see, but it's true. So I would say that for anyone who is starting up, anyone who's thinking of doing business, I mean, a chartered accountant is the first person that you need. That one person needs to keep track and have a record of your balance sheets year on year, and that one person needs to be spoken to at least once in 3 months, so that you get a perspective from an external person who is not deep diving into your business activities but is looking at your business overall in general. uh, I myself, I've been surprised to see a lot of balance sheets of my members or other friends or other people that we work with. And when you look at them, or when you talk to them, or when you look at their social profiles or their LinkedIn profiles, they seem to be doing really, really well. But when you look at their balance sheet, it just tells a different story altogether. On the flip side, there are guys who come across as struggling constantly. But when you look at their balance sheets, when you look at their P&L statements, it's just mind blowing, the kind of growth that they've shown. So I would say that this is something that as a business, I mean, valuation is something which is very critical to all startups now. There is only a certain point till which we can go without external funding. I would be, it would be very silly of me to say that any business would function long term without valuation. I mean, uh, you could just be an SME and it could be a lifestyle business, but if you're really in there passionately and you want to make it big, then you will need to raise external funding at some point or the other. So having your consultants work with you from day one is the most important, because that kind of puts all your effort into a perspective for a third person who might want to come in and put money. And it's as simple as that. If I walk up to any of you guys asking for any chunk of money, then you're going to want to know how safe your money is, and you are going to want to bet your money on something that you really, really believe in. Now it's my job to get that message across to you.
Right. Excellent piece of advice there, Vedant. Uh, so communication is the key, right?
Absolutely.
Excellent. So, and I'm sure a lot of the founders who are either coming from, let's say, tech background, then the communication would be the least priority for them. And they all would care about is building the product, making the tech far more superior than their upcoming or the forthcoming competitors. And communication is basically something which they would not prioritize. And whenever I say communication or the word sales pitch you said, there was a smile on Rohan's face. So why don't we ask Rohan only? Rohan, how important is communication for a startup to raise funds?
So Prank, actually, I have a just a different. You had asked this that support part, right? I believe that investors are like this is where a lot of founders actually get it wrong. They start thinking as an investor's answer of yes or no as validation to their idea, right? Which I would
Mhm.
definitely suggest people never to do that, right? Because you're going to hear at least 50 to 100 no's before you hear that one yes, right? And that one yes is, of course, someone who's believing in you as a person, right? Rather than again looking at you based on your statistics. So in terms of where people sometimes get it wrong is that they start losing faith in themselves, and that's where the downhill slope starts coming in. Whereas I believe that you can I don't believe that there is a failure of a business, right? I believe that there's a failure of a business model, right? But I also believe that there are ways to sort of pivot that and adjust according to times, right? Like we've all seen COVID has come over here, it's affected the world, but because a lot of businesses have shut down, yes, I mean, my condolences to all of them, but I also feel like had you sort of evolved yourself accordingly, right, that would have helped a lot. Because so what if you're doing a certain thing right now, right? That doesn't mean you can't do another sort of segue into doing something else, right? I mean, yes, it should be related. Yes, and you're doing something with travel, and then you go on to do something with something completely absurd. But
Right.
to answer your question, the communication part, right? It's very, very important, right? Because the team that you're building from the start, you don't look at these people as employees. These are all people of that you're building that are part of your core team, right? I call them my family, to be very honest with you, right? Because if they don't believe in your vision and in your idea, they're not going to be motivated to work. They're not going to be motivated to build that big vision that you have. They go, paisa to aa jayega. Money will flow if you're solving a real problem, right? But if you don't have the support of the
Absolutely.
correct people, of the correct team, it's going to be very difficult for you. So communication with your team, I would say that is number one. Because if your team believes in you, I agree with Vedant when he says that investing definitely gives you that kind of rapid growth to market, the kind of scale. You do need that, right? Because nowadays the rate at which competition is coming, you may need external funding at some point to beat that competition, right? But it's not the existence of your business, right? So first communication would be, in my opinion, the team, right? Motivating them, making them actually believe that the problem that you're solving is real, right? Because that is when their passion comes in. Second is the kind of communication that we have with the people, your support system, be it your family, be it your your CAs, your lawyers, any one of those sorts. Because again, if you don't like these three CAs, doctors, and lawyers, right? These three are the people that you should never lie to, because these three are the people who can always sort of make sure that what are the sort of consequences. So I would say be very truthful, be very transparent, even when it comes to investors, even when it comes to your team. Be as transparent, as honest as possible, because I've seen that even though my years of experience are very little compared to the people who I'm speaking with at right now, but trust and transparency goes a very long way, right? When you're working with that, with a pure belief of what you're solving is real, and that comes out in the kind of conviction of what you're talking about. I think that makes a very big difference. So communication, being honest, being sort of transparent, being reliable. I would say that these are very, very, very important, regardless of who it is you speak to. Yes, the pitch changes a little bit when it's a team, lawyer, and an investor, but your underlining motive should be that, in my fair opinion.
Excellent piece of advice again, Rohan. You focused a lot on the value system, a lot about integrity, honesty, and of course, having the belief and considering your team as your family, which is the most important thing. I mean, if things are going south, your family members will stick to that and they will help you go north. I mean, There's no question about it. And if the tech team, let's say, if your founding team becomes that family to you, then no wonders you will touch would never see the downhill. And thank you so much for bringing this secret piece of advice again with so much passion and enthusiasm, Rohan. All right, next. Kushru, here we are talking about multiple things. I mean, we are talking about value system. Rohan also touched about pivoting the system a bit. So when you advise a startup, or when some startup comes to you asking that I'm having so and so problem in the technology, how can you help? So what are typical things which you advise to a startup who's in the tech domain and is struggling? You got on mute. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So the fundamental thing people have to understand is today everyone wants to create a startup. The government supports are amazing. There is a lot of funding available, very easy funding available at many a times. But everyone wants to be a startup and have a $1 billion valuation. I hear this thing quite often. How do I reach $1 million valuation? How do I reach 100 million valuation? Now, people have to understand that when you launch a startup, the first and the most important thing is not technology. What business problem are you solving? Okay. Now, take for example WhatsApp. WhatsApp has a $19 billion valuation. If you ask, if you take a group of five, any college interns and tell them to develop the whole concept of WhatsApp, they will be able to do it in around few months, the whole WhatsApp.
Right.
So what WhatsApp is not technology. It is not a technology solution. Though we consider it a technology solution, there was a need for people to interact easily. And it did that. It solved that problem. Right? So people have to, when you launch a startup, two things very important, very important. And every startup owner has to evaluate himself or herself against that is what business problem I am solving, or I am there is a solution that exists and I am making it better. Many a times what happens is people piggyback on a problem. There is already a solution available, but there are shortfalls in that solution. So people take it a step forward. So that is the first and most important thing. And second is stick to your area of competence. If you do not have any knowledge of healthcare, please don't launch a healthcare startup. Even though the funding available, everything available in that domain is high, don't go there, because you do not understand that domain at all. And if you do not understand the domain, you will have to depend on, you will have to be at the mercy of external people to help you solve problems. So typically when I see, there are two things you should understand. For any solution right now, there are two things. When we talk about startup, typically we talk about is from a perspective of technology. So either you
Right.
have to be excellent at technology and then take somebody's help to solve a business problem, or you have to be excellent at solving the business problem and take somebody's help to solve technology. There is no third option available, right? So it is very important. And yes, we talk about valuation, and like Himanshu very correctly said, that it is, the beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Typically I have never been able to understand how valuation happens today. Because when I look at Cred's valuation, or I look at Swiggy's valuation, or I look at Baiju's valuation, it befuddles my mind to understand how they can be valued at this level, how they can afford a Shah Rukh Khan or a whatever, whosoever is
Yeah.
advertising. How can they afford that? So literally I've been in this industry for 30 years. I understand a little bit of this industry, but in this current scenario, this valuation game, I am not able to understand at all. So what is it these companies have? I want to find out, and this is one of the questions I am going to ask Himanshu a little bit later. Is how do you arrive at these mind-blowing numbers? So my take on that. Still, people might say I'm a little bit old-fashioned or old old generation, so as to say, but this is what it is. Focus on your business problem that you are solving and stick to your area of competence. Those are two things that any startup should have, whether it is IT startup, agriculture startup, IoT, all those, anything.
Superb, superb. Focus on your business problem and come up with a solution to solve that business problem. And you don't even need a pitch then, is what Kushu is saying. So excellent. I mean, yeah, even when we deal with all the clients who come to us saying that, okay, I'm dealing in so and so business field, and I'm coming up with this and this solution, we always ask them one single problem, one single question, which is what problem you are solving. Is the problem technical or it's a business problem? If the problem is technical, how you are solving it, what technology using it, and how this technology is helping to solve it. If it's a business problem, how the technology is playing the role again, and how are you solving it? If the inventors or the founders or the promoters know the answer of these how parts, then they have a very good quality patent application out of it. They have very great innovation. But if they do not know the answer of this question, then we ask them, please go back to your drawing room and come up with the answer on why you are solving what you are solving, right? Because it's very easy to answer what part of anything which you are doing, and also the how part to some extent, but why comes from within. So unless and until you as an entrepreneur suffering from that particular problem in the business domain or in the day-to-day life, you cannot answer why. It has to be very personal as well. Excellent piece again, Kushu, Rohan, and Vedant again to bring in. Himanshu, uh, I'm going to just ask you two things. If you want to give an advice to a startup from a CA's perspective or from the lens of a CA, what would be the two things which you want to share? Two golden things.
I think one thing at least certainly would be that keep keep compliances at the back of your mind, while you as you said, when somebody's starting and people with a passion to deliver technology to create something new in this world will always focus their efforts or their time on their business, right, or on this creation, and which is rightly so. But what we have seen in so many cases is that because there is only a focus on those technical or business aspects, some of the basic things about how the entity is created, what filings are required, how the accounting is being done, they are small things at the initial stages because the company is small, the activities are small. But those small things, if they are not taken care of initially, it takes sometimes a lot of time to reverse those in future after you have reached a particular stage. And by the time you're fundraising or you're at a stage where you've grown to like 50, 100 employees, and suddenly you realize, oh, that basic thing was not done and now I have to reverse, it takes up a lot of management bandwidth to get things undone. So that is one thing which I think people should keep in mind. And again, they may not spend their own efforts on this, but just ask someone else to look into it. Like again, appoint a third party CA. You do not have a CA on your payrolls itself, but any advisor, etc. At least some basics, if they can be taken care of, I think it will help smoothen the processes going ahead.
Excellent.
And the second thing is, I think just tuning into what Koshu and everybody else mentioned, that today there's a lot of hype around, let's get this valuation done, let's get this structure done, let us do something outside India. I think all of that, while it sounds very nice, but it brings with it a lot of complications from a tax and regulatory perspective. So just keep in mind your bandwidth and your capability to deal with those complications. When you talk about changing your structure or trying to say that, okay, somebody else has done this, so why should I also not do it? I'll get two more good investors and I will create a profile. it can take up a lot of time in managing those structures. Especially, when people say that, okay, I will set up a structure outside India, because that is what many people have done and successfully done it.
Right.
In some cases, it becomes challenging to justify that structure. If you are completely focused on India, then why do you need that structure? How are you going to run that structure? Will you have people outside India to manage that? And then, if once you set it up, then again, undoing something like that is very, very difficult. So any such structural decisions, I think people should be just a little cautious. Just take into account your capabilities as well, and where do you want to focus your energies on. Because at this stage, when you're taking the decision, you will not have a large compliance team to support you in all these matters.
Mhm.
So you are as sole person running around, as Kushu said, from everything, like from a CEO to everything, you are responsible. And when you get your time divided into compliance matters, I think that's not the best use of your time. So I think try to keep it simple where required. Of course, at some point you will need to get into that at some point of time when you're large enough, and there will be that pivot, right, where you will say that, okay, I'll let up a better structure, I will move into something more. So one can think about it, but just be cautious that when are you taking that decision, when are you pulling that trigger, and focus on compliances to some extent.
Excellent, excellent. I mean, these are the 2 points which often the founders do not pay attention to. Their primary objective, the day they start their own company, is get more people, get more work, get more billing done, and let's spread the word. And compliances and of course the structuring part always takes a back seat. And thank you so much for bringing this matter home. You have rightly hammered this topic. So great to have your valuable insights here, Himanshu. Thank you so much. So now, as I promised earlier to all of you, the floor is open. I'm going on mute. You guys can ask questions. So here we have Kushu's hand raised already. So Kushu, over to you.
So Himanshu made a amazingly valid point that compliance is the key and the penalty for non-compliance is very high. Okay, you have to understand that if you do proper compliance, you will be able to save a lot of money, and there will be a lot of financial as well as non-financial benefit coming out of doing this compliance. For example, very simple thing, that getting yourself registered as a startup. The first phase is very simple, but first phase does not give you any benefit. It is typically the second phase and the following phases that gets you benefit. So many a times what we do, or what I also did, the mistake that I did is just stopped at the first phase. And then I went to my chartered accountant and told him that, okay, can we claim our tax benefit out of it? And he said, no, we cannot claim any tax benefit out of it because you are not registered for the second phase. So first register for the second phase and then claim the tax benefit. So getting a proper, a good chartered accountant company to, and let me not just say a chartered accounting firm. When I say a chartered accounting firm, I mean a lot broader, because chartered accounting and company secretarial work are both interrelated. And both of these functions are absolutely necessary for you to function smoothly. So it is not
Absolutely.
just a CA, but a CS, a company secretary also. There are a lot of secretarial work. You register your name, you file your director's reports. There are a lot of these small things, but you fail once, and the penalty is very high. Like, people are not aware. You have to file a TDS by a particular date. If you are not filing a TDS on a particular date, your penalty is very high. You have to file your tax returns, your company tax returns by a particular date. The penalty is 5,000 rupees a day if you don't file it on a particular day.
True.
So these are things which are absolutely important, and I know for sure that out of 199 startup owners don't understand this.
Correct.
But they want to cut costs, and the first cost they cut is, let me file the government. Maybe they have also named the tax scheme very attractively. They have called it Saral. Saral means easy, but it is not easy.
Right.
Not
It is
easy.
not Saral. It is not easy. It is not Saral. So you will need a chartered accountant to help you. And please, I have a very strict chartered accountant, and he will ensure that I do absolute month to month compliance. My books are never carried forward after 31st. On 31st, all my books for the month are closed. So
Awesome.
if you do that kind of due diligence, then your path is very easy, very, very comfortable. But if you think you are going to do everything on your own, no, that's not going to happen. You don't have the skills, you don't have the knowledge of the taxation industry, of the compliance industry, of all that is required. Okay, so please, the first advice: hire a good chartered accountant, not just a chartered accountant to save the cost of 500,000 rupees. No, that's not what you want. You want a chartered accountant who understands startups, who understands the whole basic way of how to create a company, everything.
Yeah, I
Excellent
couldn't
point.
agree more.
Excellent point.
In fact, I had a personal experience with this as well. So when I was when we were raising our fund, it's been a while, almost about 5 6 months now. We actually got into a lot of, I wouldn't use the word trouble, but it took a lot of time in the due diligence that was done on our company, right? Because our
Absolutely.
balance sheets and everything were all over the place, right? It was, we used to use, whatever tools for invoicing. We used to file it whenever GST bhi kabhi bhi dal dete the. Matlab, it wasn't very secure. It wasn't very, because at that time also we were also running in a very haphazard manner, right? So when
Correct.
finally the stage came where the due diligence was there, what should have taken maybe like a couple of weeks, 2 3 weeks, actually took a good at least 2 months, right? And one point that Sir Khushru said was that hire the right people, right? I'm 110% for that, because see, the thing is, as founders, our roles are to find a solution to the problem that we are solving and run the company, right? If we anyways have a lot of things on our plate. If we go ahead and start learning how taxation is done, how legal agreements are filed, how IP is done, then so there's no end of it, and your brain is better utilized somewhere else, right? So the it's very
Correct.
important to make sure you have the right CA, because rather than you getting into it, get someone good who understands, and all they have to do is give you advice, right? So like right now, every 31st I have a call with my CA, right? Again, we talk about the invoices and everything. Yes, it'll take maybe 5 hours of that 31st day, right? But that 5 hours that day is going to save me like a lot of time in the long run, and especially as your company keeps going bigger.
Correct.
So again, that is actually one of the advice that I would give founders as well. A lot of people make mistakes of trying to take everything onto their plate. My suggestion would
Yes.
be, don't try to do that, right? Even when it came to our legal agreements, we hired a proper law firm. It was a little expensive, but we hired the proper law people, because the
Yes.
kind of insights and inputs that they give are unmatched as to whatever you can learn in however much time that you spend,
Yes.
right? And there's no point in you spending that kind of time. So I completely agree. I've faced this problem myself. It's a completely totally relatable problem, and 100% agree on getting the right people on board for your third party people, like
And
see.
one case and you will recover all the money.
Yeah.
One case and you will recover all the money.
Yes, 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 absolutely. I mean, thank you so much, Rohan and Kushu, for speaking your heart out, sharing exactly what happened with you, and how can people who are listening to us do not fall into the same trouble again. I'm sure this will help the whole ecosystem.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now we are almost on time. If anybody has anything to ask or share, we can take that. Otherwise, we are good.
I just have one last thing to share. So I just want to give like two pieces of advice to young founders. I'm not able to necessarily say it for people with much more experience, but two things is, one is focus a lot on the right support system, right? I would never been have able to do a lot of things had it not been for the right partner who I was founding this business with, for the right team, for my family being supporting me, right? Them not putting pressure on my back for 2 years. Ki, yaar, engineering se nikal gaya, when is the job coming? What kind of paychecks and all, right? Had that been there, it would have been, my mindset would have only been very off, right? So first I would say is, right support system is very important, from your family, from your loved ones. Try getting a partner on board. Trust me, distribution of the kind of stress that you get is a very big thing, and it does help on to be able to lean on someone at the worst stage, right? And the second thing, I don't want to give generic advice by telling okay, do this, make this kind of change your business and all, but the second one would be that don't be overwhelmed, right? And that would be a request of mine to many aspiring founders, because when you see so many companies go on the side and the news every day is coming, people are raising funding, someone of your maybe someone did a job and you started a company and they're doing much better than you as well. Don't ever get overwhelmed, yeah, because it doesn't help anybody. You have a problem, it's fine, sleep over it, take a day or two, right? You will come across a solution, it's not that you won't. But don't let the external factors influence you and how your brain is going, because you have to be the right person, because you are the person for the company, right? So don't be overwhelmed, right? That would be my one advice to anyone that I speak to at a young stage, because I've been a victim of it myself, I'll be very honest with you. So it's not that I'm just unnecessary, I have been a victim of it. But again, had it not been for the right support system, I would probably not be in this situation right now, where I would be able to get over it. So my one small advice would be, don't get overwhelmed, let these things happen around you. Trust me, everyone's time is going to come. Just stick at it, be as dedicated as possible, and good things will come your way.
Excellent. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, yes, guys, in these difficult times, all we have to do is stick around each other, and no matter what may come, if you have the right value systems, if you have the right team, you have your family supporting you, you have your team supporting you, and most importantly, if you have the belief that yes, whatever solutions you're coming up with, whatever problem you're solving will make a mark uh, to the country, will make a mark in people's life, then go ahead with it, and eventually you will find success. Never get overwhelmed by somebody else's huge amount of valuations that is there, because as Himanshu said, beauty is in eye of the beholder. So you would also get one when the day comes. So just keep hustling, keep pushing, and let's make let's make the startup ecosystem more richer, more vibrant, more knowledgeable by sharing all of this content. Thank you so much, guys, here, Himanshu, Khushru, Rohan, and Vedant, for sharing your secret sauce, sharing your challenges in the journey, and also advising startups on do's and don'ts, what to do, what not to do, how to take care of your compliances at the right time, and the importance of starting your own thing as well. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. Uh, Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All
Thank
right.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.